Hello everyone. In this video, we will be discussing about VPC and then we will create a EC2 in the created VPC and then we will try to host a static website. So in this entire video, these are the topics we will be discussing. Like first we will come to know what is VPC and then we will talk about subnet and we will also talk about internet gateway, route table, and then we will create an EC2 instance. It's a virtual server, we can say. So this EC2 instance, we will be creating in the VPC what we create, also the subnet under this VPC what we create. And once we create the EC2 instance, we test by connecting to this EC2 instance, whether this EC2 instance is publicly accessible or not. And once it is accessible, then we will try to host a static website and then we test that static website. So this is about the agenda of this particular video. Let's get started. So if you ask me, what is VPC? It stands for Virtual Private Cloud. So a VPC is a private cloud that is located within AWS private cloud, public cloud. And it's a virtual network, we can say, and that is dedicated to an AWS account. And this is logically isolated from other virtual private cloud in the AWS cloud. By default, AWS creates a VPC in each region for us. So we call it as a default VPC. But in case we can create our own VPC and then we can set up our own private cloud and we can have full control about that particular VPC. And once we create a VPC, then we have to also create a subnet. And as subnet says, it's a subnetworking. And this subnet in AWS is a logical subdivision of an IP network, we can say. A subnet divides VPC into multiple logical networks, allowing user to isolate resources and control access to them. And a subnet is a range of IP addresses in our VPC also, we can say. And the number of subnet what we can create in a VPC purely depends upon a CIDR block what we give for our VPC as well as the already created subnet. So the number of subnet lies like this. And then once the subnet is created, then we will go and create an internet gateway. But now let's talk about what exactly is this internet gateway. So IGW is an internet gateway. And this is the component which will allow my newly created VPC to have an internet access. So we can say that this is a bridge between internet and then the private cloud. Let's say that we have a cloud and then we have our VPC, which is in Amazon. And then if we need to connect my VPC to the internet, then we need a bridge. And that's what this IGW does. IGW will allow me to connect to the internet, my VPC to internet. And then we also have a route table, RT. This stands for route table. And a route table in AWS is a set of rules that determine where the network traffic is directed or routed. Each subnet in AWS VPC is associated with a route table that controls traffic flow between the subnets. And then even within our VPC, also if we need to transmit some traffic outside of our VPC also, then that type of traffic must be configured in this route table. Based on that, the traffic takes place. And once we create a VPC and we create a subnet and then we create an internet gateway and attach it to the VPC, and then we also create a route table, then at last we will create a EC2 instance, and then we will try to host a instance to that. So let's keep the theory part very simple. Let's go on do some hands-on on this. So this is my AWS account. I have opened around 5 to 6 web browsers just to keep things very simple, that in one page I have VPC, and the other one I have internet gateway and subnet, route table, and then instance. So this is where we will be creating EC2 instance. So let's get started. So as I said, I'm in one region. That region is a central region, Canada Central region. So in this region only, I'm going to create all the said services. So right now we have only one VPC. Now let's go and create a VPC. So to get to this particular place, what we have to do, we have to, if we log in, we will be landing inside the home page of AWS. And then here we have to type VPC so that it takes me to the VPC page where I can create my VPCs. I can check what all other VPCs are available right now in my account. So there is one default VPC. Now let's create our own VPC. So for creating a VPC, I have to click create VPC. And in here, I can, if I want, I can go for creating both VPC and subnets all together. If not, I can just go and create only VPC. So let me do only creation of VPC. And let me give it a name. Let's say VPC1. And then this is about the CIDR block. And if we want, we can go with this IPv4 CIDR manual input. So that's what the option I'm going to select. So in here, let me give the CIDR block. So it means 16. The first 16-bit will be taken for network ID, and then the next 16-bit will be taken for host ID. So with this CIDR block, within this VPC, I can get up around 65,000 individual IP addresses. So that will be huge, more than sufficient for my demo purpose. In case if you require less number of host IPs, then you can even go with the larger number, that is 24. It means first 3 octets. It means 24 bits will be reserved for network, and only the last 8-bit will be reserved for the host IP. So in this case, we will be getting around 256 individual IPs. So let me go with 16. And then the tenancy is default. I don't want to change this. Let it be default tenancy and say create VPC. So what I have done, I have created a VPC in AWS Cloud. Let's say that this is public cloud, which is maintained by AWS. So in here, we have created our VPC. So this is a public cloud, we can say. And inside this public cloud, we are creating our own isolation for our instances. So I have created my VPC. So once I create a VPC, if I just go to your VPCs, you can see that VPC1 has been created. And these are some of the details about my VPC. So this is the VPC ID, which is generated while creation, and status, it says available. And this is a CIDR block, which I have given for my VPC. And if I want, I can get inside this VPC, I can test, and I can come to know what all are the default parameters are available. So first part is done. Now let's go and create the internet gateway. So right now we have one internet gateway, which is already attached to the default VPC. So we can create a new internet gateway. So if you want, you can go inside this VPC, and then if you click for internet gateway, then you will end up in this particular page. Let's say create internet gateway, and let's give it a name, VPC1 IGW, and say create internet gateway. So once an internet gateway is created, we need to attach it to a VPC. Either we can do it directly from here. In case if you miss this particular link, I can go to internet gateway. So in here it will be listed. So if you see here, it is detached. It is not attached to any VPC. That's what it says, the status of the newly created VPC. So now I have to select this and then go to action and say attach to VPC. Obviously, there is only one VPC which is not having internet gateway. That is why only I can see the one VPC. So I select that, and that is a VPC which I have created just before, and say attach internet gateway. And that's it. So what I have made is that I have created a VPC, and I have also created an internet gateway. So through that, I can connect to public internet. Let's say that somewhere here, the public internet is available, and this is AWS network. And we have our own private network here. So we made the private network have an internet connectivity. So second step is done. Now let's move on and create subnets of our VPC. Obviously, when the default VPC was created, there was one subnet each per availability zone created. So if you see 1A, 1B, 1D is availability zones, which are available in this central region, Canada central region. So we are not worried about them. Let's create our own subnets. So for creating a subnet, you have to go under this VPC section and select subnet in the navigation bar, and then we end up in this page. So let's create a subnet. And here we have to choose the VPC ID. So we have to choose the VPC which we have created right now. Let me select VPC1. And then let's give subnet name. Let me make it as a pub subnet. So just the name doesn't make any subnet a public or a private. I'm just giving a name. So during configuration, we have to set right in such a way that my subnet gets connected to internet as well. And then I'm not giving any preference. Let Amazon only decide where it has to create. And the CIDR block of VPC is this. So this is, we can't change this. It is telling that this is a CIDR block. And in here, we can give the subnets CIDR block. So I'll give it as /24. So in this subnet, I can create around 256 host IPs and say create subnet. Yes, this is a new settings. They are asking us to give the feedback and say subnet, submit. Okay, my subnet has been created. And this is the public subnet which is created right now. And if I want, I can get inside and check. And these all are the basic configuration level settings like subnet ID, the state is available, the CIDR block what I have chosen while creation, and then this is a route table and the network access control list. So using this network access control list, we can control the access to this particular subnet from outside. So the subnet is also created. So what we have done is like we have created a VPC, we created internet gateway. Now we have also created a subnet. So we still have space. We can create some more subnets as well, but let me keep it very simple. And this subnet is public subnet. Now I have to do some modification in the route table, which is associated to this particular subnet. So in such a way that, so when there is a internet bound traffic, which is initiated from this particular subnet or from coming from outside, then we should route that internet bound traffic to this particular route table. And that's what I'm going to make now. So if I go inside the created subnet, I can go to the route table by using this particular link. And it takes me to the route table, which is associated with the subnet. I can click this route table again. And if we see in the route, we only have a local route. So if you see the CIDR block, it is the VPC CIDR block. So within this VPC, all the traffic can be maintained right now. But if there is any internet bound traffic, which is initiated from this particular subnet, which we have created, if needs any internet connect, if let's say that we create an instance here, and if it needs any internet connectivity, then it cannot make it. So for that, I will add a new route. And for that, I'll just say edit route and add route. So I will be giving this IP address. This is an internet bound traffic, we say. And any internet bound traffic should be routed through internet gateway. Let me choose the internet gateway which I have created right now and which is attached to the VPC, and then say save changes. Yes, once I made an entry, so we can say there are two entries. Before there were only one, now it is two. So any internet bound traffic will be routed to this particular internet gateway. So the route table will route through this internet gateway, and then we can connect to internet. Okay, so now we have created VPC. We have also created an internet gateway, and then the subnets, and then the associated route table entry also we have made. So let's check whether we have made the connectivity perfect or not by creating a new instance. Right now, I don't have any instances running. Let me create a one. So for creating an EC2 instance, I have to go inside this navigation bar, and then if I select instance, then I'll be getting this page. In here, we have to say launch instance. So we can say how many number of instances we need, but right now let me go with one instance. Let me give it a name. So I'm going to make it as a web server. So let me give the name as web server. So I'll keep all the other settings default to keep the things very simple. And even for the key pair, I'll proceed without a key pair. And in here, in the network settings, I have to make some modification because by default, it will be taking the default VPC and subnets information. But in here, we have created our own VPC. So let's choose that VPC. For that, we have to edit the VPC and we have to select our own VPC, which we have created right now. And then we have to create the subnet. So we only have one subnet, so it is automatically selecting that. In case if we have multiple, we have to select which subnet we need to create this particular EC2 instance. By default, public IP is disabled, so I have to enable it. So if I want to connect to this EC2 instance from outside, then this EC2 instance must have a public IP. So I'm just enabling public IP for this. And then I say create a new security group for this particular instance, and I choose this create security group. In here, by default, one rule, that is port number 22 is already added. If we want, we can add some more security rules also, or we can do it later as well. So right now I'll just add only SSH. Later we will do this modification, and that's all. So let's launch an instance. So by this, we have created an instance. It takes a couple of seconds for loading. Let's wait for some time. So this instance, which was terminated long back, is still visible. Let me just only display the running instances. This is the only running instance we have. Okay, it says it is running. Let me try to connect to this particular EC2 instance. And before connecting to that, let me check whether I have enabled SSH or not in the security group, which is attached to this particular EC2 instance. So let me go inside the security tab and check the security group. So inbound rule allows from anywhere 22. Yes, we have a port enabled for 22, so we can do SSH. So let me go to the instance. Let me select this and say connect. So this is the easiest way to connect and do some activity. So the other way is like we can have some PuTTY installed to our home system, and from PuTTY we can also connect to this, but this is one of the easiest way. And say connect. If everything is okay, then we must be connecting to it. If not, we have to check our settings. Yes, I guess we have kept all the settings correct. So that's why we have connected to this EC2 instances. Let me again walk you through what we have done actually. So we have created an EC2. EC2 is nothing but a virtual server. It's a virtual server, just like purchasing a laptop or a desktop. So you'll get the physical hardware with you, whereas it is almost like purchasing a laptop or a desktop, but virtually. So that's why we say virtual server. Okay. So we have created an EC2 here. I'm somewhere sitting in the internet and I'm trying to access everything through this system. This is the system right now I'm located. So from this system through internet, I'm just trying to connect to this particular VPC's EC2. So how do I connect? I need this EC2's IP address. And with this particular IP address, I have already connected. So I have landed here. So now, as we said, like we have done all these steps like VPC, subnet, internet gateway, route table, EC2. Now let's host a static website. For hosting static website, I need to do some command execution. I'll quickly walk you through that things. Let's say sudo issue. So to be a super user, then let me update my newly created system. Yes, it's updated. Now let me install this. You miss the package manager. We can use it for installing softwares and installing them. So now let me install HTTPD. It is a web server, Apache web server. If I want to host any website, then I need a web server. So I'm installing that. So I use this command. I can also give -y just to install it successfully without asking me, do I want to proceed? Yes or no? Yes, it is installed. Once it is installed, let me start the Apache server by using a command called systemctl start httpd. And if I want, I can enable it. This is an optional one because whenever I restart the system, Apache server should be automatically started. So it doesn't require my manual start command to be executed. And if I want, I can check the status of the httpd Apache software. I have installed and started it. So it says the active and it is running. So now we are ready to go. So what I do for this example, I will be just pulling a basic HTML page from a website called freecss.com. And then in here, if you go, some couple of templates are available. And I'm choosing this particular one. So I'll say right click and copy link address. And this code, I will be pulling it to my VPC EC2 instance here. So to get that, I use wget webget and just paste that copy link address. So this is the link address which will be giving me the code. So the code is right now, it is not available in my system and it has downloaded it. Let me ls and check. Yes, it is downloaded. It's a zip file. Let me unzip it. Unzip new. Yes, it is unzipped. When I say ls, okay, a new folder has been created. Let me get inside this particular folder by saying cd command. And if I say ls, yes. So there are some couple of files I have, and these are the files which are related to my website, which I have downloaded, the code which I have downloaded. So now let me move all this code, all these files, move star. It means like all the present working directory content files will be moved to the folder called under root where www.html. Okay. Now let me get inside this particular folder called where www.html and to check whether everything is okay or not. Yes. Now, if you ask me, this is the folder when somebody is hitting this particular EC2 instances with its IP address for asking any website or web server is running or not. So this is the website, it will be landing. And in here, we have something called basic index.html. And this is the page which will be rendered for the first time. And I guess we are ready to go. Now, let me grab the IP address of this particular EC2 instance. Let me select this and paste it in the web browser and check. Okay. So we have to do some configuration level settings. Like in this EC2 instance security group, we have allowed only 22 port range access. It means we can connect to this EC2 instance through SSH. This is the connectivity which we have already made. But now we have to enable also another port that is 80 so that we can access this particular EC2 instance using port 80 as well. So for that, what I can do is I have to get inside the EC2 instance where I want to modify something. So in here, I should go to the security tab, select the security group. In the security group, the inbound rule should be edited. So let me edit inbound rule and add a rule. And let's say HTTP. Yes. So port number 80, I'm just opening, and for everyone, let's say anywhere IP, if I want, I can even give my IP also. It means just to give some sort of security. But right now, let me keep it very simple and say save rules. And if I go and hit this IP address again, okay. Let me go to incognito window and check this. That's it. We have got access to the website which we have deployed to the EC2 instance which we have created. And that's it for this video. Let me reiterate what we have done so far. Like we have created a VPC, we created subnet, and we also enabled internet connection to the VPC. And there was a route table associated to this particular subnet. We add a internet bound traffic route as well. And then we created an EC2 instance and hosted a static website. If needed, we can also do one more addition to this. That is, I can just go to my hosted zones. I have a Route 53 hosted zone as well. Yes, I have one hosted zone. So I will just give a DNS name for this IP address. So this is my hosted zone. Let me get inside this hosted zone and let's create a new record. So what I'm going to do now is, so obviously remembering an IP address is very difficult. That's why we have something called name, domain name. And this is like mapping an IP address to the name. So I already have a name. So for that particular name, I'm just going to map this newly created EC2 instance IP address. So I have already pulled that IP address. So I'll give the record name. So in case if somebody is asking for www.cloudmasters.mobi, then that will be mapped to this particular IP address. If you ask me what is this IP address, this is the IP address of my system. Let me go inside the instance. This is my instance and this is the public IP. So I'm just redirecting that particular traffic. So if somebody's hitting this particular URL or DNS, then that will be routed to this. So these are some of the records. So these are a little advanced. Maybe we'll be discussing in other videos. But right now I can say that a record is for IPv4 addresses. So we have a IPv4 address. So I have chosen a record. In case if I had any IPv6, then I could have chosen for a record. But this is IPv4. I'll choose a record and say create record. And the record has been created. And within a couple of seconds, it will be up and running. So let me check that. Let me open a new window and say www.cloudmasters.mobi. And that's it. So we are still getting the same thing. So if I hit the IP address or I hit this domain name, both will make me to land in the same page of my website. And that's it about this video. And thank you.